Get her out. We do not let black women touch money that is not theirs." The sentence split the lobby like a thunderclap. The manager's voice was loud, deliberate, and cruel, meant not just for her but for every set of ears in the bank. Heads snapped toward the sound. A mother with a stroller gasped. A man in a gray suit smirked, as if enjoying a private joke suddenly made public. In the middle of it all stood Adrian Cole, quiet, composed, her hand resting on a slim black laptop case. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we are glad you are here. Now, back to Adrian. The lobby of Grant National Bank smelled faintly of polished brass and stale coffee. It should have been ordinary, another Tuesday morning transaction. But the manager's words turned it into a courtroom, one where Adrian was not a client but an accused criminal. He looked at her blouse, plain white, neatly pressed. He looked at her shoes, unbranded, clean but unremarkable, and he judged her guilty without a trial. "She probably found that card on the street," one teller whispered, not softly enough. Another clerk muttered, "They always try this scam, pretending to be VIP." The words were daggers, each one twisting deeper. Adrian did not move. She had seen this theater before. The stares, the smirks, the casual cruelty disguised as protocol. At 24, she had been denied a mortgage despite putting down triple the collateral. At 30, she had been told she did not fit the image of a corporate client. And now, decades later, in a bank her company technically owned, the same verdict fell again: you do not belong. A young black man near the teller line lifted his phone, camera already rolling. His lips tightened as he whispered, "This is wrong." An older white customer beside him shook his head, dismissive. "They are just protecting the bank." The manager leaned in closer, his breath sharp with arrogance. "Do you think we cannot see through you? You people never come here with clean money. Call security." His order was quick, practiced, as if rehearsed countless times before. The room tightened. The guard by the door reached for his radio. A woman in line pressed a hand to her mouth. Adrian's silence did not weaken her. It thickened the air, made every second heavier. She placed her hands flat on the counter, her eyes steady, her voice still locked away for now. The insult had been thrown. The crowd was watching, and the storm was only beginning. The guard's shoes scraped across the tile as he stepped forward, one hand already gripping the radio at his shoulder. The manager did not wait for protocol. He barked, "Remove her now. She is trespassing in a private client space." His words were heavy, crafted to sting, to brand Adrian Cole as an intruder in the very place she had come to conduct business. A teller snickered under her breath. "Look at her shoes. They are not even designer." Another clerk leaned close to whisper, "Fraudsters always try to act calm." Their whispers were not private. They were daggers tossed into the open air, meant to reinforce the story that Adrian did not belong. Adrian did not move. Her stillness cut through the lobby like glass, fragile but unyielding. She opened her laptop case, placed it on the counter, and quietly tapped the screen awake. The light from the display glowed against her face, a soft halo in contrast to the harsh fluorescent bulbs above. The manager sneered. "Do you think that toy will save you? I have seen this before. You people create fake documents, fake names, fake wealth." He looked around at the customers, inviting their judgment. A man in a pinstripe suit nodded approvingly, muttering, "Exactly. They do not earn it the right way." Near the teller line, the young man recording on his phone whispered to the woman beside him, "This is exactly what they do to us. They humiliate first, ask questions later." The woman, a Latina mother holding her child, frowned. "They do not even care who she is. They already decided." The guard's hand hovered closer to Adrian's arm. "Ma'am, you need to come with me." His voice carried the flat tone of authority, but his eyes betrayed uncertainty. Adrian raised her gaze to meet his, calm and unwavering. "Do not touch me," she said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut the air. The command froze him in place. The manager slammed a hand on the counter. "You see? Defiant. Exactly the type we deal with every week. Call the police. Let them take her out in handcuffs." Gasps rippled through the lobby. A young woman in line, clutching her purse, muttered, "This is going too far." Adrian's silence remained. But inside that silence, the tension thickened. The phones kept rising. A witness in the corner pressed record. Another whispered to her partner, "I think she is someone important." The murmur spread like a fuse catching fire. The guard hesitated, radio still at his shoulder, as the lobby held its breath. The accusations had been spoken, the crowd had taken sides, and the storm that Adrian refused to meet with anger was gathering all around her, one heartbeat away from breaking. The silence shattered when the assistant branch manager strode out from a glass-walled office, his tie crooked as if he had rushed to play judge in this unfolding trial. His voice carried authority sharpened with contempt. "I am in charge here, and I will not allow a woman like you to manipulate my staff." He pointed at Adrian Cole's laptop with open disdain. "Close that device now. Fraudsters do not get to stage a performance in my bank." A customer near the coffee station whispered, "He did not even ask her name." Another shook his head. "They do not need her name. They already made up their minds." The air thickened with judgment, not from evidence, but from prejudice dressed as policy. Adrian's hands rested calmly on the counter, unmoving, unshaken. Her eyes rose slowly, meeting the assistant manager's stare. She did not argue. She did not plead. She simply let the weight of his words hang heavy in the lobby. Then came the escalation. The branch manager slammed her bank card against the counter hard enough for the sound to echo. "This is confiscated until law enforcement verifies it. You have no right to claim millions in an account here." The word millions made customers stir, their curiosity sparking into suspicion. A woman in a blue business suit scoffed, "There is no way she has that kind of money. Look at her clothes." A man in line added fuel. "I work 3 jobs and still do not dress that plain. She is lying." Adrian blinked once, her silence louder than their noise. She remembered being 25 years old, standing outside another bank after being told her deposit was suspicious. She had cried in her car, not because she doubted herself, but because she knew this would happen again. And here it was. The guard's radio crackled. "Unit 2, proceed to the lobby." The call was official. Police were on their way. Gasps and murmurs circled the room like vultures over prey. One young man muttered, "They are calling the cops on her for existing." His phone shook in his hand as he filmed. The assistant manager folded his arms, lips curled into a smile. "Your little act is over. We protect this institution from people like you." His words were cold, confident, rehearsed. He believed he had already won. Adrian finally moved. Not a flinch, not a step back. She reached for her phone with deliberate calm, pressing a single contact. Her voice was quiet, but every ear in the lobby caught it. "Begin documentation. Every word, every action, every face. Timestamp now." A hush swept through the crowd. The first ripple of doubt cracked the performance of authority. The storm was no longer one-sided. It was shifting, and no one knew yet where it would land. Adrian Cole's phone glowed softly in her hand, her voice steady as she repeated, "Begin documentation." On the other end, a calm female tone responded, clear enough for those nearest to hear. "Confirmed. Recording has started. Internal system linked to headquarters. All dialogue is being transcribed in real time." The words made the lobby pause. Customers glanced at each other. Some whispered, "Headquarters?" Others leaned closer, curiosity now mixing with unease. But the branch manager did not waver. His smirk widened. "You think a call will scare me? We deal with fake lawyers, fake consultants, and now fake executives every week. You are nothing different." The assistant manager nodded in agreement. "She came in here dressed like she walked out of a discount store and wants us to believe she is a millionaire client? Impossible." He turned toward the guard. "Escort her out. Police are already on the way." The guard stepped forward again, tension in his shoulders, but hesitation in his eyes. Adrian lifted her gaze to meet his. Her tone cut through the lobby like steel. "If you lay a hand on me, this bank will pay for it." The guard froze, his grip on the radio slackening. A voice rose from the crowd. A young woman clutching her purse finally spoke. "She gave you her identification. She gave you her card. You ignored it all. This is not policy. This is profiling." Heads turned toward her. The assistant manager snapped, "Stay out of this or you will be removed too." The young woman's cheeks flushed, but her voice grew stronger. "I will not stay out of this. I saw her name on the system earlier this morning when I checked in. Her reservation for a meeting was valid." Gasps rippled again. The first public crack appeared in the bank's wall of authority. Adrian remained still, her hands folded over her laptop case, eyes calm but unyielding. She remembered being 16 years old, waiting in a hotel lobby in Charlotte, told by a clerk that guests only could remain inside. She had been escorted to the sidewalk as if she were dirt. That memory burned into her now, fueling the silence she carried like armor. The branch manager's voice rose, louder, desperate to reclaim control. Enough. This woman is a fraud, and I will prove it. She does not belong in this lobby. She does not belong in this bank, and she does not belong in our system. He slammed the counter with his palm, each word striking like a gavel. But for the first time, doubt moved visibly through the room. Customers shifted. Phones stayed raised. The guard did not advance. And Adrian's quiet command to document everything hung in the air like a warning bell that no one could silence. The tide was beginning to turn, even if the branch staff could not yet see it. A man in a tailored Navy suit stepped out from behind the row of glass offices, his presence sharp and heavy with seniority. He was the regional director, the one employees feared more than any compliance audit. His words cut before he even reached the counter. This has gone on long enough. Remove her immediately. She is poisoning the integrity of this branch. The room shifted. Customers who had been murmuring fell quiet, their eyes now bouncing between Adrian Cole and the man who carried himself like the ultimate authority. He turned to the crowd with a cold smile. Ladies and gentlemen, fraud is not tolerated in Grant National Bank. We will not allow one pretender to destroy decades of trust. Adrian remained seated. Her hands did not tremble. Her silence was not weakness. It was gravity pulling every pair of eyes back to her. She raised her phone slightly. On the other end, her assistant's voice was precise. Documentation confirmed. Audio captured. Video streams synchronized. Headquarters is watching. The director scoffed. Headquarters? That is the oldest trick in the book. Say something big. Make everyone hesitate. Do you really think anyone here believes you have a connection above this branch? He leaned close enough that his cologne lingered. You do not even belong in first-class banking. Look at you. This is laughable. A young black man near the teller line whispered to his friend. She has not said a word in anger. That is power. His phone was still recording, the red light blinking like a warning beacon. The director noticed. His eyes narrowed. Turn that device off. You are interfering in an internal security matter. But the young man did not lower his phone. Instead, a middle-aged woman across the lobby raised hers as well. No, she said firmly, we will keep filming. The public deserves to see this. The director's face flushed red. He snapped at the guard. Do your job. Remove her now or hand me your badge. The guard froze, caught between orders and the quiet authority radiating from Adrian's stillness. Adrian finally lifted her chin, her voice carrying just enough to pierce the tension. You are not protecting integrity. You are exposing your bias. Every word you have spoken is now recorded. Every insult documented. Every decision traced. The crowd stirred. Whispers rose louder, like sparks catching in dry grass. A man near the coffee station muttered, She sounds like someone who knows exactly what she is doing. The director pounded the counter once more. You are nothing. When the police arrive, you will leave in handcuffs. Adrian's eyes did not blink. Her reply was measured, deliberate, unshaken. The police will not decide your fate today. Headquarters will. And with that, the atmosphere cracked. For the first time, it was not her credibility in question. It was his. The lobby, once controlled by the bank's hierarchy, now belonged to the storm Adrian had allowed to gather in silence. The regional director's fist still rested on the counter when a new sound cut through the lobby. The faint but unmistakable chime of multiple phones receiving alerts at once. Screens lit up across the room. A woman near the teller line glanced down at hers and whispered, It is trending already. Another customer lifted his phone higher, eyes widening. People are posting live. The whole city will see this. The director's jaw tightened. Nonsense. These little videos mean nothing. But his voice no longer carried certainty. His authority wavered as the glow of raised screens filled the lobby like a constellation. Adrian Cole remained still, her composure unbroken. She reached for her phone again and spoke clearly. Proceed to escalation. Mark every statement that referenced race or appearance. Her assistant's voice returned, crisp and unwavering. Logged and confirmed. Headquarters Ethics Board has been notified. A live transcript is streaming to corporate. Gasps rippled. The guard shifted uneasily. The director's eyes darted toward the staff as if demanding reassurance, but none came. One teller finally broke the silence. Her voice shook, but she spoke loud enough for all to hear. She is not lying. I saw her name in the system, executive level. It was flagged this morning, but I did not say anything. She swallowed hard, shame flashing across her face. The director snapped, "Quiet! You will lose your position if you spread lies." But the damage was done. The crowd turned toward Adrian, their skepticism bending into belief. A young Latina mother, still holding her child close, raised her voice. "I watched you call her a thief before she even spoke. That is not banking policy. That is discrimination." Her words landed with more force than any document could. The director pointed at her, enraged. "You do not understand how banks work. We protect our clients." But another customer answered from the back. "Protect? I have banked here for 20 years and I have never seen you treat a white man like this." The lobby stirred, the tide shifting palpably. Phones captured every second. The guard lowered his radio, uncertainty written in his face. Adrian leaned forward slightly, her tone calm but cutting. "You accused me before you verified a single fact. You judged me by clothing, by skin, by silence, and now every word you spoke is no longer yours. It belongs to the record." The director tried to summon authority one more time. "Enough. She is a fraud, and I will not—" But his words faltered as the entire lobby buzzed with voices, some outraged, some protective, none obedient. The storm had broken open, and for the first time, Adrian was no longer standing alone. The witnesses had become her chorus, and their voices carried the weight of truth. The regional director's attempt at authority cracked under the weight of the crowd's voices. He tried again, louder this time, as if volume could replace truth. "Security, detain her now. She is obstructing banking operations. She is a threat." His words bounced off the marble walls but landed hollow. The guard hesitated, caught between orders and conscience. His hand hovered near Adrian Cole's arm but never closed the distance. His voice betrayed his conflict. "Sir, she has not raised her voice. She has not broken a law." The director snarled, "Do as I say or hand me your badge." The ultimatum fell heavy, but before the guard could respond, the branch manager snatched Adrian's laptop case from the counter. He yanked it open, waving it high like contraband. "See? Nothing but props. Just another act to fool us." The crowd gasped. One customer shouted, "That is theft. She did not give you permission." The young man still filming stepped closer, his voice steady. "You just destroyed the last piece of credibility you had." Adrian did not move. She watched as her laptop slid across the floor after being tossed aside by the manager. The crash echoed louder than his accusations. She turned her gaze slowly toward him, her expression unreadable, her silence more damning than any outburst. The assistant manager added fuel, pointing at the broken device. "If she were legitimate, she would have nothing to hide. Instead, she comes with fake tools and fake wealth." He folded his arms, smug in his blindness. Adrian's voice finally returned, soft but piercing. "You just tampered with corporate property. That act alone will cost you more than your job." Her words froze the room. The manager laughed nervously. "Empty threats. You cannot scare me with your imagination." A ripple of unease spread through the crowd. A woman whispered, "She sounds too certain." Another customer added, "No one stays that calm unless they know something we do not." The director tried to regain control. He raised his voice again. "Police will arrive any moment. This farce will end with her in cuffs." But the murmurs grew louder, a tide he could not control. Adrian's phone buzzed once in her hand. She lifted it, speaking clearly. "Protocol escalation complete. Forward the live stream to the compliance board. Flag all staff involved." Her assistant's response was steady. "Confirmed. Headquarters is watching. Their silence will not protect them now." The director's face drained of color. For the first time, he looked unsure. Around him, the staff shifted uneasily. And in the crowd, more phones tilted forward, recording not just Adrian's humiliation, but the collapse of those who had tried to enforce it. The marble lobby no longer felt like their fortress. It felt like a witness stand, and every biased word they had spoken was now evidence. The storm had reached its peak, and Adrian still had not raised her voice. Adrian Cole's calm voice seemed to linger in the air long after she put down her phone. The silence that followed was not peace but pressure, pressing down on every staff member who had insulted her. The director's hand twitched against the counter. The manager fidgeted with the cuff of his shirt. Even the assistant manager's smirk faltered. Adrian finally stood. The movement was slow, deliberate, commanding. She looked across the lobby, her gaze sweeping over customers, staff, and security alike. "You wanted to put me on trial without evidence," she said evenly. "Now the record will serve as your judge." The guard took an uneasy step back. He had been ordered to remove her, but her words carried more weight than his chain of command. Customers were no longer just filming. They were whispering openly, some with disgust toward the staff, others with awe at Adrian's poise. Then, with a single tap on her phone, Adrian shifted the entire balance of the room. "Activate internal verification," she commanded. Her assistant's voice came instantly. Verification engaged. Cross-checking ownership structure. Connecting to the parent corporation database. Gasps erupted. The director's face tightened, his jaw grinding. "This is theater," he snapped. "Smoke and mirrors. She is bluffing." But no one answered him. Every eye was locked on Adrian. She did not move closer, but her words carried forward. "In less than 1 minute, the system will confirm who I am. And when it does, every insult you spoke will no longer be words in the air. They will be corporate liabilities." The branch manager tried to interrupt, shouting, "Lies! All of it!" But his voice cracked. The confidence that had filled the room earlier was gone. A customer near the front counter muttered, "If she were lying, why is she so calm?" A chime sounded from Adrian's phone. Her assistant spoke again, steady and clear. "Ownership verified. Executive authority confirmed. Adrian Cole, Chief Executive Officer, Cole Financial Group, parent company of Grant National Bank. Verification complete." The lobby fell silent. For the first time, no one dared whisper. The director's face drained of all color. The manager's eyes went wide, his mouth half open but speechless. The assistant manager shook his head as if trying to deny the reality in front of him. Adrian's voice cut through the silence, sharp as glass. "You judged me by skin, by clothing, by silence. You called me a thief in the bank I own." She paused, letting the words settle like a verdict. "That was your last mistake." The crowd erupted not in chaos, but in applause. Phones tilted higher, capturing the exact moment power shifted. Staff who had mocked her now looked as if the ground beneath them had disappeared. And Adrian, calm and steady, remained at the center, her silence transformed into undeniable authority. The storm had broken, and the reckoning had begun. The revelation landed like a strike of thunder. For a heartbeat, the entire lobby seemed frozen, as if marble and flesh had turned to stone. Then came the collapse. The regional director's shoulders sagged, his lips moving but no sound escaping. The branch manager who had tossed Adrian Cole's laptop stepped back until his heels struck the counter, his eyes darting to the nearest exit like a trapped animal. Adrian did not move quickly. She did not need to. Every step she took forward was measured, heavy with a calm that felt more powerful than any raised voice. She stopped at the very counter where her bank card still lay, bent slightly from being slammed against the surface. She picked it up with deliberate care and held it between two fingers. "You seized what was not yours," she said, her tone even, her eyes locked on the manager. "This card represents authority over every dollar that runs through this branch, and you thought it belonged to no one." The manager stammered, I did not know," but his words collapsed into silence. Adrian cut across him without raising her volume. "You did not need to know. You judged me the moment I walked through the door." The director finally found his voice, low and hoarse. This cannot be real," but a customer answered from the crowd. "It is real. I just checked online. She is listed as the Chief Executive Officer of Cole Financial. She owns this bank." The confirmation rippled outward. Murmurs turned into gasps, then into quiet exclamations of disbelief. Adrian turned her gaze toward the assistant manager, who had crossed his arms so tightly they trembled. "You mocked me in front of witnesses. You accused me without fact. Tell me, was that your training, or was that your choice?" He opened his mouth, but no excuse came. His silence betrayed the truth more than any words. Customers shifted, some shaking their heads, others raising their phones higher to capture his downfall. Adrian's assistant spoke once more through the phone in her hand. "Corporate compliance has flagged their profiles. Access credentials are under review. Orders pending." The words drained what little color remained from the faces of the staff. The director whispered, "Please, we can fix this." But Adrian did not smile, did not soften. She let the weight of their fear settle across the marble floor like fog. "This lobby belongs to me," she said at last. The sentence was not shouted. It did not need to be. It cut sharper than any order. The customers erupted again, some clapping, some calling out in support. Phones captured the exact moment when humiliation turned into revelation, when silence turned into power. And for the staff who had believed they held authority, reality had shifted. They were no longer the accusers. They were the accused. The atmosphere in the lobby cracked wide open. Fear spilled across the faces of the staff like water from a broken dam. The branch manager's lips trembled as he whispered, "She owns the bank." His voice was small, meant for himself, but the words carried across the silent marble floor. Customers who had been uncertain moments ago now turned openly against the staff. A woman in a red blazer shook her head in disgust. "You humiliated her. You called her a thief. And all along she was the chief executive officer." Another customer raised his phone and declared, "This video is going viral. Everyone will know how you treated her." The assistant manager tried to regain ground, his voice wobbling with desperation. "This is a misunderstanding. We thought she was a fraud. We were protecting the institution." But Adrian Cole's steady gaze froze him in place. "You were not protecting," she said evenly. "You were projecting your prejudice. There is a difference." The regional director's authority had withered, his tie hanging loose, his face pale. He stepped forward, hands half raised in a gesture of surrender. "Mrs. Cole, perhaps we can resolve this quietly. No need for escalation." His attempt at diplomacy rang hollow in the charged air. Adrian did not move closer, but her words cut the distance. "You silenced truth with arrogance. You turned bias into policy. And now you ask for silence? No, silence has already done too much damage." The guard, who had once been ordered to remove her, took a step back, almost aligning himself with the customers rather than the managers. He lowered his radio completely, choosing not to speak. His silence was not compliance. It was recognition. A young woman holding her phone toward the ceiling spoke boldly. "I watched you call her a criminal before she even said her name. That is not a mistake. That is who you are." The crowd murmured in agreement, their voices now heavier, more united. The staff who had once stood with confidence now stood cornered. The assistant manager's shoulders slumped. The branch manager rubbed his temples as if hoping to erase what had already been recorded. The director's eyes darted toward the cameras in panic. Adrian's phone chimed again. Her assistant's voice came through clearly. "Corporate compliance is waiting for your command. All personnel involved are flagged. Do you wish to proceed with removal?" Every face turned toward her, some pleading, some resigned. Adrian Cole did not raise her voice. She did not rush her words. "They will face consequences. Every insult, every theft, every abuse of authority will be answered." The crowd erupted in applause, not chaotic but rhythmic, like a verdict delivered by the people themselves. Phones captured it all, the staff trembling, the customers vindicated, and Adrian standing calm at the center. The bank had tried to erase her. Instead, it had exposed itself, and the reckoning had only just begun. Adrian Cole did not flinch as every eye fixed on her. She lifted her phone once more, her voice steady, precise, and unshaken. "Proceed with termination. Effective immediately. Revoke access for the regional director, the branch manager, and the assistant manager. Lock their credentials. Freeze their internal accounts." Her assistant's response was immediate, clinical, and final. "Confirmed. Executing removals now." A sharp electronic chime sounded from behind the counter. The director's identification badge flashed red, then dark. The branch manager's terminal locked itself, the screen displaying a warning, "Access denied by corporate authority." The assistant manager's login credentials dissolved before his eyes. One by one, the very tools they had wielded to humiliate her slipped out of their grasp, stripped by the system in real time. Gasps broke out across the lobby. A woman with a stroller whispered, "She just shut them down." A man in a suit muttered, "I have never seen anything like this in my life." The staff panicked. The branch manager slammed his hands against the locked screen. "No, this cannot be happening." The assistant manager grabbed at his badge, waving it desperately against the reader, but the device only emitted another red flash of denial. The director's face drained of blood. "Please, Mrs. Cole," he stammered, his voice reduced to begging, "this will ruin us." Adrian's reply was quiet but merciless. "You ruined yourselves the moment you decided humiliation was easier than service. This is not revenge. This is accountability." The customers erupted into applause. Some clapped, some cheered, Some simply nodded in solemn recognition. Dozens of phones stayed raised, capturing the historic reversal as those who had once mocked her stood powerless, stripped of their authority before the very witnesses they had tried to impress. The guard stepped away from the counter entirely, moving to stand near the customers as if to distance himself from the disgraced staff. His voice was low but clear. "Ma'am, for what it is worth, I am sorry. I should have stopped them sooner." Adrian acknowledged him with a single nod, then turned her focus back to the leaders who had fallen silent. "You believed power was in your titles, but power has never been in paper or plastic. It has always been in truth, and now the truth has spoken." The director's lips quivered, but no sound came. The branch manager lowered his head, shame swallowing what arrogance had once fueled. The assistant manager closed his eyes, as if waiting for the ground to open and take him away. The applause swelled again, echoing off the marble walls, not for spectacle but for justice. And at the center of it stood Adrian Cole, calm, composed, unshaken, the very image of authority they had tried to deny. The humiliation they had crafted for her had become their undoing, and there was still one final word left to be spoken. The applause that filled the marble lobby did not fade quickly. It lingered like a tide that refused to recede, carrying with it the weight of vindication. Adrian Cole allowed it to swell, not for her ego but for what it represented. For every customer who had been told they did not belong, for every silent humiliation that had gone unrecorded, for every voice that had been dismissed until this moment. When the sound quieted, Adrian stepped forward. She stood where the director had once towered, where the manager had once sneered, where the assistant manager had once smirked. Now those men stood stripped of power, their badges useless, their authority dissolved. Adrian's presence filled the space they had claimed, not through volume, but through undeniable truth. Her voice was steady, each word deliberate. "This bank belongs to me. Its walls, its vaults, its name, and its reputation. You tried to turn them into weapons against me, but all you revealed was your own prejudice. You believed that my silence meant submission. You believed that my skin meant suspicion. You believed that my clothing meant poverty. And every one of those beliefs was your undoing." The crowd listened in absolute stillness. Phones captured every syllable. A mother held her child tighter. A young man lowered his phone for a moment, just to look directly at Adrian, his eyes wide with pride. Adrian's assistant spoke once more through her phone, her voice calm and precise. "Compliance has logged the incident. Legal review is underway. Public statement draft prepared for your approval." Adrian did not hesitate. "Approve it. Let the truth be our only defense." The director raised his eyes one last time, his voice trembling. "Please, is there nothing we can do?" Adrian turned toward him, her gaze sharp yet calm. "There is nothing you can undo. Every word was yours. Every action was yours. The record is permanent, and so are the consequences." She turned back to the lobby, her voice carrying not just to those present, but to every unseen audience that would hear this story. "I do not need a camera to prove who I am. I do not need applause to justify my dignity. I do not need silence to make peace. I am the result of every attempt to erase me, and I will not be erased." The lobby erupted once more, not in chaos, but in triumph. Customers clapped, cheered, and lifted their phones higher. Some cried. Some simply stood in reverent silence. The staff who had once wielded power now stood diminished, their downfall complete. Adrian Cole closed her laptop case, lifted it from the counter, and walked calmly toward the exit. She did not look back. She did not need to. The truth she had unleashed would remain long after her footsteps faded. Justice had been delivered, and it had spoken without shouting.